Welcome to Real Unsolved Crimes. In tonight's episode, we travel to the quiet, scenic roads of Virginia's Colonial Parkway, a stretch lined with history, beauty, and secrets. Between 1986 and 1989, this peaceful path became the backdrop for one of the most haunting unsolved crime sprees in American history. 8 lives were stolen. 4 couples vanished or were found murdered in isolated lovers' lanes. This is the case of the Colonial Parkway Murders. The Colonial Parkway is a 23-mile route that winds through the historic towns of Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. It's a place tourists come to admire Virginia's past, not a place where horror is expected to unfold. But in October of 1986, that illusion was shattered. On October 12, the bodies of 27-year-old Kathleen Thomas and her girlfriend, 21-year-old Rebecca Dowski, were discovered inside Thomas's white Honda Civic. The vehicle was parked near the York River, on the parkway. Their bodies were found inside the car, strangled and bound with rope. Diesel fuel had been poured over them, possibly in an attempt to ignite the vehicle, but the fire never took. The scene was personal, calculated, brutal, and it was just the beginning. About a year later, in September 1987, 20-year-old David Knobling and 14-year-old Robin Edwards were found dead on the shore of the James River, near the Ragged Island Wildlife Refuge. Their car had been left parked in a lover's lane area. David was shot twice. Robin once in the head. Despite the difference in method, investigators began to suspect a connection. The couple, the remote location, the unexpected savagery. Then, in April 1988, 20-year-old Richard Call and 18-year-old Cassandra Hailey went missing after attending a college party in Newport News. Their bodies were never found. But Richard's car was discovered abandoned at the York River overlook, again, along the Colonial Parkway. There were signs of foul play. Clothes were left behind. The car appeared undisturbed. It felt all too familiar. And finally, in October 1989, just 3 years after the first murders, 19-year-old Annamaria Phelps and 21-year-old Daniel Lauer vanished while driving from Amelia County to Virginia Beach. Daniel's car was found abandoned at a rest stop off Interstate 64. Their skeletal remains were found a month later in the woods nearby. Cause of death couldn't be determined, but there were signs of stabbing on at least one of the bodies. 4 cases. 8 victims. All young. All couples. All either murdered or missing under eerily similar circumstances. But no arrests. No suspects. No solid leads. The FBI joined the investigation. Profiles were drawn up. Theories were floated. Was this the work of a serial killer? Someone with knowledge of local terrain? A law enforcement impersonator? There were reports that in at least one case, the killer may have used a badge to lure the victims into a false sense of safety. The idea of someone posing as police, or actually being one, sent chills through the community. And then, nothing. Years passed. Families grieved. The cases went cold. But the families never gave up. Bill Thomas, the brother of Kathleen Thomas, became a tireless advocate for answers. He worked closely with journalists, law enforcement, and other victims' relatives to keep the case alive. He launched a podcast, wrote articles, and demanded accountability. His efforts, along with public pressure, helped push the FBI and Virginia State Police to re-examine the evidence with new technology. In recent years, DNA testing has offered hope. Hair samples, fibers, and degraded biological evidence are now being processed with modern tools. New persons of interest have been discussed, though never publicly named. And yet, no arrests have been made. There are many theories. Some believe a lone killer targeted couples in isolated areas, a predator who knew the backroads well. Others think these were copycat crimes, separate killers exploiting similar circumstances. Still others suggest the crimes were opportunistic, not planned, but violent eruptions in the dead of night. But the evidence, it's murky. Some of the victims were shot. Others strangled or stabbed. Some were left fully clothed. Others partially undressed. Inconsistencies have led some to question whether the cases are even truly connected. Yet the locations, the pairings, the eerie patterns, it all feels too calculated to ignore. What we do know is that 8 young people lost their lives in the span of just 3 years. Their families live with a nightmare that refuses to end. Kathleen, Rebecca, David, Robin, Richard, Cassandra, Daniel, and Annamaria were more than just headlines. They were students, dreamers, siblings, children. And their killer, or killers, have never been brought to justice. If you were in Virginia in the late 1980s, if you drove those roads, if you ever saw something that didn't feel right, you might hold a piece of the puzzle. Contact the Virginia State Police or the FBI. Because time may pass, but the truth does not disappear. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Real Unsolved Crimes. Share this story. Keep these names alive. And let's continue seeking justice for those who can no longer speak for themselves. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the quietest places hold the darkest secrets.